William, you might as well introduce us and like work our way in. All right, shake it off. Shake it off.
Perfect start.
All right, guys, you know it's going to be a good show when I've already gotten the water and a tea from Rob and Alyssa. If you have not joined us before, Rob and Alyssa has been with us for ages, but she is now finally crawling into the limelight, so good for her. We've also got William Wofford, who is, trying to get himself undiscombobulated. And then we've also got Minnie Eunice, and I'm Marie Brownhill. So welcome to this week's Trekkers Delight live stream. This week we're going to talk about, I know we're a week off. It's a thing. Just deal with it. We're going to talk about Choose to Live, episode 3 of Discovery season 4. So who wants to kick us off? William, are you undiscombobulated?
Okay, I'm back. I'm good.
Okay, you sure?
Good. You sure? I'm straight. I mean, not really, but like I'm like. I'm looking at Jamaica.
Sweetheart, nobody believes that. No.
I know. I tried. I really tried. There's no point anymore, right? Okay. So anyway, so yeah. Choose to Live. That was a very, very deep episode, and bringing back certain characters I didn't know we'd be seeing this. I mean, I suppose you could say we could see them in every season, but it was good to see a certain lady in this particular episode. So, Bree, should we go over like a brief synopsis of the episode? Like, how would you like to go about it before we dive into the topics? Because spoiler alert, each of us have seen it. So if you have not seen it, turn this off, okay, and come back in like 1 hour. Sorry.
I think probably starting off with a synopsis would probably be the best move. So, Manny, you've seen it twice, so
yeah,
take it away.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. And who sounds like Darth Vader?
I don't know. I see that though. Is that me? That's not me.
No.
Thanks, guys. So we start with this finally, and I've actually we talked about this briefly in the What If episode. We finally see another ship in the future, right? In the for the Federation. It's I can't remember the name of it. Commander Fickett, the USS Credence, and this is I gotta say, like, it was very slick. There was a thing at the top. I actually went to Google it. It said USSC-CH is the name of the room or something. I don't know what that was. It was stamped in this room with the dilithium. That was interesting to me. I like that they've chosen red for the dilithium, which is interesting. And then all of a sudden, these Qowat Milat nuns come out of nowhere and hijack these things. They're looking all like crazy, and they got hoodies on, and they're waving swords. And there's a quick little scene where they kill Starfleet officers, and then back at the.
You're in a bad way when you've got a hoodie and a sword, right?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing good can come of that.
These space nuns, they're crazy.
I mean, man, nuns.
Yeah, they kept calling them that in the comments and stuff like that, space nuns, and that's fine. So we get back to this big meeting where Starfleet is meeting with Nivar, is meeting with the Qowat Milat, represented by Burnham's mother, which was an interesting. I love that in that moment she had both Rillak, like all these people who were important to Burnham were all around the table with her. You had Rillak, you had Vance, and then you had her mother, involved. There's Vance. Wow, it's a good-looking picture there.
Someone really took time with that one.
It's nice.
Right?
It's like the Obama picture effect, like with the hope and change. That's nice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm loving they captured every single gray. That was good.
I am not complaining about any one of those grays because Oded Fair has like ridiculously aged well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I gotta say, I am jealous. I will never age that well. It doesn't matter how much product I use.
He's a descendant of the mummy.
Just get some stuff on there. So we get to this meeting, and it's all decided that they'll bring in this person, Giovanni, who has committed these crimes. We haven't heard from her for a while and stuff. And now you have Burnham with her mom on the case to like bring someone in from the Qowat Milat, which is a really great throwback. I like that to Picard and stuff. So off they go, and they discover and Saru, who I'm so happy put Tilly on this as well, because we finally have a little bit of direction for Tilly. Sent her out there, and yeah,
My girl.
that's nice.
Yeah, and
I
this is
like that.
mirror Tilly, by the way. Like,
Is it?
Oh
that is
yeah,
fierce. Okay.
bad. That's just badass.
You guys can. I mean, I'm just taking this through how I kind of remember it. So
Go ahead.
finally, we get to this like moon where they find and have a showdown with Giovanni, and they find that there's this alien species we've never seen with a cool the whole thing was cool because of the aesthetic being like super novel. Never seen anything like this. And the species was laden or had latinum as part of its physiology, and so that these pirates were coming to like take them, and Giovanni's lost cause, her
Columbine.
Galancar, thank you,
She was
was
serving
that
Columbine.
to save these people. And through Tilly and Burnham's use, they save the day. They wake up all of these people who are in a sort of cryostasis and allow them to leave. And Rillak is happy, and Vance is happy, and everyone's happy except when, at the end, they hand Giovanni over to Nivar. And Rillak tries to explain that this is done because of politics. We tried our best. And she turns to Vance. She's like, "You're really okay with this?" And he uses a belabored analogy of an orchestra to explain that we're all in this section. You're in the wind section. I'm in the drum section. We're all in different sections. Yeah, that's my summary.
Speaking of Navarre, though, we actually get to look at Navarre, and it's our first like in-person look at Navarre, because Stamets and Book have to go back to, or have to go to Navarre to interact with the Navarrian Science Academy. I'm gonna slip up at some point this evening and call it Vulcan. I'm not
Vulcan.
gonna lie.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
just gonna come out, so don't crucify me. Because it's been Vulcan Science Academy forever.
Absolutely.
And now suddenly we're in Navarre. But so Stamets is cramming at the beginning of the episode, trying to take all the data that he got in the previous episode and break it down, and try to figure out what the dark matter anomaly is, which he calls the DMA. And he's looking for tachyons, because his theory right now is that it's going to be a primordial black hole. And unfortunately, he can't seem to find the tachyons. So Book is also looking for tachyons, despite this not being anywhere in his wheelhouse. But he just feels he needs to do something. And they go to Navarre, and the Navarrians have a very distinct way of doing things that no one apparently prepared Stamets for. And they take about 5 seconds, look at Stamets' incredibly detailed data and analyses, and are like, "Yeah, no, you're wrong." And Stamets is like, "What? No, I can't be wrong." Literally, like 4 out of 5 points. Like, it's tack. And they're like, "We see no evidence of tachyons in your data." And so Stamets is just kind of like doing his best impression of a goldfish over in the corner, and then Tarina and looks up and says, "We've got a witness to the destruction of Quajon right here. We can see if he remembers a blue halo or any sort of blue lights, because turns out there should have been Charentov radiation, and that didn't come out at all. Charentov radiation that is super luminal and would kind of give off a blue cast." And so she's like, "I'm going to mind meld with you, and I'm going to take you back."
That was intense.
It was very, very intense. So Book goes back into his memory, and he has this experience where, I mean, he literally has to relive the awful traumatic experience of watching his world die. And they end up back even further, right during the ceremony, and Book finds some peace because he remembers Leto turning to him and seeing exactly how much Book loved him, which is really his issue with Leto and his fast, he seized on Leto to the point where he was hallucinating the child's presence, um, as the representation actually of this much larger grief, which is not to say that he's not grieving Leto for the reasons he says, which is he didn't know that Leto knew how much he loved him, but it's almost a microcosm of just the greater loss of Quajon, because could you imagine trying to wrap your brain around the loss of your entire world? At this point, we still don't know if there's another Quajon at all.
At all.
Right?
Like poof.
I gotta tell you, if we're going to pick a specimen to survive, I'm okay with it being Book, but that's crazy. There is literally no one else like him that has that shared experience, that has any of that. And I don't think, I really think he's trying to wrap his head around it, and he couldn't, and so he focused on Leto because it was a good way to kind of break that down into a digestible, comprehensible piece.
If I may ask a question to pretty much every person here, starting with from Marie to Manny to Robin. So if who's not
if you want my slot, Robin, welcome to it, because everybody's going to get super tired of me by the end of the night. Y'all know I don't.
All right, we'll start with Robin in this case.
Oh my god.
Just made it worse.
I'm gonna throw you under the bus.
Okay, so there was a moment. It would make Spock very, very proud. There was a moment where Trina displays emotion right after the mind meld with Book. Now, as far as the development from Unification parts 1 through 3, what was your initial reaction to seeing that emotional development, allowing herself to feel emotions, but not letting logic, crunch it down into nothingness? What does that say about the development, and in terms of how it goes towards mental health, depression, and anxiety? The words she had for Book that she really didn't have any words at all, because what can you say?
So this is probably my favorite scene with any Vulcan character in any Star Trek franchise. And we've had a bunch of really, really good scenes, particularly in Reunification. What I loved about it, as you said, was just the beauty that we've come from this point where the Vulcans are logical species, logic. And then finally, after years and years, and finally reunifying with the Romulans and making their species, their society whole once again, and having these emotional moments where through a mind meld, where that is such a personal thing between the person and the person mind melding, and just having that emotional connection with them. And then, like you said, not being able to say anything. It's just such a beautiful journey across all 60 plus years of Star Trek, just to kind of see that happen. And I loved it. It's beautiful. I cried a little bit, honestly. It was great.
Oh
yeah, I'm really gonna need Discovery to stop making me cry. It's kind of like they've decided that I have to be Burnham this season, and I just don't have that many tissues, guys. I need you to pull back. All right, Manny, you finally get to say something.
No.
Tell us about your Vulcan experience, my man.
No, I'm listening. It's you. Isn't it you next?
No, it's your turn, Manny.
Okay.
What was your reaction to that emotional placement?
To me, the graphic of how they went into the mind meld was delicious. I loved the actual shot of them going into it. It was wild, actually, because we've seen mind melds pictured in different ways before. And what I thought of, honestly, was Tuvok. That's kind of where I was going. Was I was remembering how he would go into mind meld, and we saw a lot more of Vulcan stuff. And we've had this conversation briefly about how him being more like the primary Vulcan figure in like the modern Star Trek. He was the sort of representative of what is a Vulcan, right? Oh, you could say like that the same for Worf, like what is a Klingon, in terms of the episodic nature of Star Trek. So when he would go into a mind meld and he was like reliving the sequence, you know, it was made for TV. This was a cinematic thing, you know. It was amazing. And so we went in and we saw it from like different angles, and we saw the only thing is from how Tuvik described the emotions. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
so cool. When he described those emotions, we know from previous descriptions what's going on in the mind meld. I would have liked more of that in this part of the discovery thing where they talk about, okay, like maybe she's displaying some emotion, but I wanted to get more of a feeling of how affected she was by book. And I didn't get as much of that as I wanted. Like I know you guys are talking about it, but for me, it didn't land with the thud that I even got with like Tuvok's performance. Tuvok's performance with the mind meld and how affected he was, or even Sarek, you know, with Picard and
Oh
Sarek mind
yeah.
meld, that hit with a thud. That was, you know, he was in the chair and he turned around with with the tears and stuff, and he's like bawling and stuff. This is a man who lost his planet. He lost everything, and
Yeah.
we-
Death Star
we've
mode.
had, yeah, we've had brief PTSD. We've had brief, you know, the episode where he was trying to put himself back together. But for me, I felt that it was beautiful, but it wasn't as much of an emotional reflex as I would have expected. Unless she's so amazingly good at like mind melds, like she just crushed it and just was like so good. Like mind meld's super intimate experience. So just I mean to have a mind meld and it's nice that he did it. I would have thought, you know, for a while afterwards that the effect of that would have like stayed with her. And, you know, she says is like, you know, I can't even begin to describe your experience because she's still processing and all that stuff. But I wanted some outward, like something, even the music to change, something to change to reflect that.
Would you say, just a quick question for Manny, would you say it could be one of two things? One, she might be in shock herself. And two, because of her political position, just like the president over in the Federation, do you think that there's a certain constraint that is emotional constraint
You,
that might be at work here?
yes. Oh, and of course, I'm probably not taking into consideration the 900 years of like mind melding, like that they've like gotten much and much better at it. So I think you're right. Like this incredibly high political figure, right? She's the president of Navarre, having
Right.
like a casual mind meld with book, like it's
That's
wild.
a long. Yeah, that's wild.
But I don't think it's casual. I don't think that's at all what's going on here. And I don't think it's entirely fair to expect her to demonstrate um, any sort of like emotional impact because we know that Vulcans actually, think differently than we do. And so she admits to Book earlier in the episode that Vulcans feel things very, very strongly. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
one of the reasons RMU had it developed. And also, I loved that. They pulled that out of Diane Duane's book. We finally get a name for it, right? And so I suspect that even though it is a profoundly intimate thing, I suspect there's a certain amount of remove for her. Because otherwise, nobody would be able to meld ever. I mean, think about that. Because, like, if you were literally as blended as we seem to think they are, you would pull out of it and you'd be like, okay, I'm Marie, you're Manny, we're not the same. And there'd be like a little bit of a gap there. And I really don't think the Vulcans have that because this is a trait that's innate to their species. And she's also got, I don't know, she looks about middle age, so I'm guessing she's like 100, maybe
Right.
150
Yeah.
years of time to really work on this
Yeah.
philosophy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I ask the next question, I just want to like highlight really quick that I really loved the explanation that Vulcans do have emotions was almost word for word what T'Pol gave in Enterprise. Like almost word for word. Like literally started off with a common misconception. I was like, okay, cool. So I really like that, and I'm noticing that every episode they're giving like a nod to Enterprise. Have y'all been noticing that lately?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's just and respect to Picard as well. So I think I think that's really really cool. So now questions starting with answering from Manny to Robin to Marie. What did you think about the new dynamic between Burnham and her mother returning to Star Trek Discovery? Like that relationship and that development, seeing like that thing again, mother and daughter. Like what was going on there? And again, I saw a little Star Wars moment and then I'll shut up. I saw a little Star Wars moment where she said, "This isn't a moon, whatever she said. This is an asteroid. This is a moon. This is a ship." It's like that's no moon. It's a space station.
I honestly, I did not expect you were going to go there. I got to interject because I really expected to hear, Michael, I am your mother. Like how did you miss the obvious there?
I mean, I could have gone that route, but literally, it's just like literally for me, she was in that what looked like a ruins area, and it's a ship. It's a ship. It's a freaking ship that turned into a moon at some point, a couple hundred years ago. But
or it started out that way, because remember, this is a ship that was designed to evacuate as much of the Abronian population as it could. So it would have to be a pretty sizable craft in order to do that, even with them in cryostasis.
It's probably so big that it had its own, and probably with the technology to mask its signature, hide it from certain threats, had its own gravitational well, so that way it will protect itself and look like a moon when in fact it's not. It's a space station. So, but anyway, Manny, if you would, that's William's point. So, Manny, if we would come to what did you think about the relationship between Burnham and her now brought back mother?
So there were two scenes, and they were both at the meeting when you first see her that I loved the way that they shot it, which is one when they first announce her and she's walking into the room, it's the downwards cast reflection where you see it in the table and then it's her. It's like you see the mirror image of her and then it's like her again.
Yeah.
And then you look up and she's smiling. And the other thing is when they're all being El Serioso, everyone's serious and like professional and I have some job to do and whatever. Then they're talking about, this is the Qowat Milat matter. We have to do this and whatever. And then she's trying to be like serious and she's like, Mom, the Starfleet officer just died. Can't excuse that context. She's just like, pulls this curtain aside and is like, just drops the pretense.
Oh,
beautiful. I feel like we're starting to get a sense of Manny's relationship with his mother here.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. But Brandon on YouTube actually has a really good point where about the Abronian sort of like moon ship. And this is not the first time we've seen this. We saw something pretty similar with the Talaxian asteroid, where Neelix decides to just like be like, "Toodles, Voyager." So I kind of like actually how I mean. William, you actually brought this up. I really like how the nods to different series are appearing. It's such it's so much more subtle than it is in, say, Lower Decks.
In your face.
Because we're dealing with two different styles of show. But it's just kind of fun because it's one of those where, hey, I know what that is. I know where that came from. It's kind of a nice nod to, long-term fans without detracting from the experience for newer fans.
I love the panned out shot, if you ever saw it, when they went up to the turbo lift and you saw the entire cavern.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the cinematography for this episode is just mind-blowingly good.
It was really good. And the plot was on point. Everything about this was really good. It had a good speed. It was self-contained, which I liked.
It was self-contained, and I just want to interject on this one thing because there's a lot of comments referring to its professional cinematic, professional, so well done, and that's mainly because, like, as we're moving further and further into our century, inflation kind of like affected everything. So it's like they put so many millions of millions per episode in now present day shows that and then making shows look like movies. I was watching it and I was literally thinking, well, okay, I know that this is Discovery, right? But in my head it was almost so good I kind of forgot that this was by Paramount and this was not a fan made track. I'm sorry because everyone, there was like this big gap between the last episode of Enterprise and Nemesis and all the way to the 2009, which I don't really count, Trek. Well, I'm watching all of the fan made between then that point and that point, and I'm like, oh, this actually looks really good. And then Axonar happened, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, I
But
think this is why we're only getting, we've gone from the model of having 26, 27 episodes a season to 10 or 13 because they are more cinematic in scope and they cost more and they're harder to make and they require more post-production than, the original, the original series for sure, but also TNG,
right.
Deep Space Nine, whatever.
It's super ambitious.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But I want more. I want more for less.
You're gonna get more. You're gonna get more.
Yeah, the fourth episode is some of the most beautiful cinematography I think we've seen. Because I just finished watching, and there's like a scene with Tilly in that
spoiler.
Oh wait, no spoilers.
It's just a good
This is
scene.
episode
It's
3.
Now,
Spoilers. Oh my god! Even though I've already seen it.
I hate you all.
I haven't seen it.
The fight is so good.
It's really good.
It's just like I want to talk about it so bad.
I know.
But let's come back to the question for Robin, the last one to answer. How did the relationship between Burnham and her mother make you feel, and what did that do for you in terms of Trek character development?
So I'm actually really interested with how that relationship is going to be developing throughout the series, right? Because I can see a little bit of personal development for Burnham going on with her and her mother and kind of bridging that relationship. But then it's also going to, and I'm trying so bad not to spoil the next episode.
I know.
I'm trying so bad. But the dynamic that we get between her and her mother plays into so well, I think, the theming of the next episode. So
okay.
So
my goodness.
I know. I'm trying so bad. It's just like it's right there.
It's okay. It's okay.
I know, but
okay.
you can't.
It's okay.
You must walk back.
It's okay.
From the spoilers.
It's okay. I have a question that will bring us back. Okay. In this order, from Marie to Robin to Manny. So one of the big highlights that we discussed in previous episodes of Trekker's Delight was the personal development of the captaincy of Michael Burnham, and how even though President is Jermaine calls the devil.
Oh my God.
Can we just acknowledge that for a second?
Yeah.
Right?
He will just comment in there, devil.
Bless his heart, Jermaine really has.
Devil woman.
I mean, he is like the Miles O'Brien of Trekker's Delight. Like, I fully think he's back there currently, like, tossing up images and being like, dirty cardies.
I'm sorry, the Miles O'Brien. Okay.
It's fine. No, I get it. Yeah, it's a Cardassian thing.
I hate to, oh God, no spoilers. There's just like a certain small confirmation in this most recent episode. Just confirmation. Robin, you know.
I know.
I am putting you in timeout.
It's just on my mind.
We are going to take a short break.
Finish that
because
episode.
William can't restrain himself.
Okay.
So we'll see you soon, guys.
Yes. Short break, guys. Short break. Did something play?
I'll be right back.
So I'm watching episode 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and it's a scene with Culber and Adira. They are in this place that reminds me so much of Quarks. In fact, Adira is shooting darts, and of course, Culber is leaning on the bar. You can see the liquor in the background, but you also see fire burning. So it was a nice scene. And then all of a sudden, they continue to talk, and in the background, you see a Ferengi behind the bar talking to customers. And of course, it's not Quark, but it's I kind of get excited. And then the camera pans from another direction, and then you see what looks like Morn in the background. I thought that was a nice inclusion, a nice way, a subtle way of giving a nod to Deep Space Nine. The background was phenomenal in this particular scene, and I would love to see them back in that setting in future episodes. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Hey Trek Nation, so I just watched season 4, episode 4 of Star Trek Discovery, and I just have to say, I am floored. One thing I love about Trek is that it shows the journey of individuals and of us as a society and a people. And it was so great to watch Tilly, having seen her grow from a young cadet into a first officer and then into a lieutenant, to now taking a step off to be a teacher, and really continuing that arc of growth and realizing that she wasn't on the right path. And I really admire that, and I loved how they did the handoff between Tilly and Adira, and it just really, really warmed my heart knowing that there is a continuing arc of growth, and we get to watch a new officer grow and really develop into the future of Trek. A lot of times we as people can become stuck and stagnant, and I think that this episode was really a reminder that you have to grow and you have to always do a self-evaluation and remember that all things are possible. All you have to do is decide to do them. And I think this episode really put a fine point on that, and I loved it.
So we are now back. I'm not quite sure. Carol has said Voyager, FYI, and I'm kind of trying to figure out like where she's going with that. So Carol, if you're still there and you could let us know, that'd be aces. But
Thanks
I think
for
we're going to go
commenting,
back.
by the way. I said thanks for commenting, by the way.
Also valid. Valid. We're looking
will
forward to
talk to
having
you.
the opportunity to talk to people who aren't us. I mean, not that we don't love each other, because we do, but like also. It's nice to see other people interacting with us who love the franchise as much as we do. But I think we were talking before the break about the reintroduction of Dr. Gabriel Burnham. Yeah, it's been a long day, guys. Apparently no words are coming out of my mouth, right? Like it's just it's a thing. What do we think about the development of the Qowat Milat as a culture?
It's bringing the Romulans into a greater cultural context. The snapshot, I like to use Jolan True. I like that there is some acknowledgement to like the Romulan but we don't really know about Romulan everyday life. And I could say the same thing for citizens of the Federation and so forth. We don't really see the non-Starfleet people living their everyday lives, which I would find very interesting. We see the militaristic
Except that they've
side.
got to go all the way around the back of the house in order to get in, because the front door is fake. We know that.
What do you mean?
What?
That's from Picard. They actually talk about how traditional Romulan dwellings had a fake front door.
Oh, that's right. Oh wow, the deep cuts. Okay. But
I don't know that we've
yes, you're
ever
right. Good
actually
point.
heard, like, Brandon, that's an interesting point. I don't know that we've ever actually heard that in canon. And while I know they're pulling from a lot of the memory beta style works, I just don't, I don't quite know that we've gone there just yet. But yeah, back to Manny and the Qowat Milat and how we're putting everything sort of in this greater context with swords.
Yeah, they gave Tilly a sword.
I know. Whatever
Please give
happens,
Tilly more
like,
weapons.
I gotta say, I'm kind of getting the vibe that Tilly is trying to make the decision. I kind of feel like she's turning a little bit into Wesley Crusher, and that she's so super smart, and she's not going to be sure that Starfleet's for her.
Robin, be quiet.
I know.
Be quiet. Be
Oh my
quiet.
god, no!
Shush.
I'm over
putting
here.
both in timeout.
Yes, agree.
Joke's on you. I'll put myself in timeout.
I've been in timeout this whole episode, so it's fine.
I'm sorry.
Don't make me break out my
Jermaine's
mind voice,
doing the
people.
face palm right
That
now.
just gets rough. But I really, apparently it's going to go this way, and I don't like it. I'm not sure that I want
I am
Tilly
not
necessarily to
confirming
go
or
Qowat
denying
a lot.
anything.
But like,
I'm
I gotta
just
tell you,
telling
if
Robin to
anybody's
stop
going to
making
live
faces.
according to absolute candor,
I like that. Look, that last line with Tilly, look deep inside yourself and really be like she seemed more inspired. She was smiling more. She was being, subjected to this like external novelty, which is really good.
so she's got to run off to join like a Romulan convent, and I don't know how to.
She'll join the Nyberite Alliance.
The Romulan convent she joins in the next episode. That's not a spoiler. It doesn't happen.
We're not spoiling nothing. I'm just looking at Marie's face right now, and I'm trying because I know she will bite my head off if I breathe one word. So I don't think I can properly contribute to the personal development of Lieutenant Tilly.
So what William is trying to say is he can neither confirm nor deny that convents are involved.
Not with a southern accent.
I mean, it's a legitimate southern accent. I am actually southern.
It's true. Like you really elongated that vowel.
It's the way of my people.
Okay. Let's come back.
that and terrible monogramming. All the monogramming.
Yeah. Let's come back and try to so we can avoid spoilers, please. So one of the previous questions that I had before entering break was, how did this episode, in everyone's opinion, starting with Marie this time, contribute to the personal development for Captain Burnham's captaincy? Did that go for? Did her mother's words reach her that you feel like would help her as a captain? Because we all agreed that she kind of needs to grow up a little bit in terms of command.
So I think there's a lot going on here. A lot going on here. First is she has to learn that context does matter, and it does. And that also context matters in terms of how she's going to have to navigate her new responsibilities, because now that she's a captain, she doesn't have the luxury of telling Rillak to sort of step off. Much like Picard did, she's going to have to navigate these political realities. And that's a lot like, frankly, real military higher-ups. They also have to navigate political realities. And, Manny called Daddy Vance's metaphor belabored, and it was a little, I'm not going to lie, but I think it's a good one. Jermaine, I love you for this.
It was apt.
Damn. Oh, look, Jermaine.
I'm looking forward to the point in this live stream when we get back to Dr. Culber, because, I know Jermaine has the most wonderful picture of Wilson Cruz floating around back there backstage. But going back to it, Vance is right. Rillak has to look at a very, very different picture than Burnham does, and Burnham is going to have to accept that justice isn't always going to look like she wants it to. I really sort of feel like Choose to Live feels like an exploration of the needs of the many versus the needs of the few.
Oh. Okay. So, Manny, what say you?
I definitely felt her step into the captaincy. There was no, I think, hemming and hawing. There was no, not knowing what she was doing. She just was like, she walked into that meeting. She's like, I'll get on that right away. We'll make sure. Had the poise of any other captain I've ever seen in Star Trek. She had there was never a thought about it or a doubt. So this is the first time I've ever seen her just be a captain. And that pause at the end sort of just affirmed that, and Marie just hit it with the note about Picard, like, we're navigating the political minds of being in the captain's chair, which is when you're out there as the captain, you're making these huge decisions, but it's contained to like one starship,
Right.
and you have to kind of relent to someone who can see the whole picture. It's very much the same in the military hierarchy, and there comes a point when you are used to being in charge or a commander of your own area of responsibility, and then you look to your right or you look to your left and you see maybe people aren't doing the same thing, or that they are, and then you look up to whoever's in charge and you say, hey, why aren't we doing this certain way? And we can't really understand their logic because we can't see all of the areas of responsibility. And I think that was part of the analogy is very, very real and very in tune with most of the relationships between admirals and captains that we've seen in Star Trek. And you could think of like anyone. You could think of Benjamin Sisko with that guy with the I can't remember the Latin phrase that he uses with Red Squad when they take over planet Earth and they do all of those cool. I don't know if you remember that episode, but the betrayal, right? Or even Bashir when he gets betrayed by an admiral, whatever. There's all these betrayals by admirals. Sometimes they get red gills. Sometimes they, whatever. So there's.
And sometimes we get Star Trek 5.
I think it was a very natural admiral-captain relationship. I think it affirmed Burnham out there she finally relied on her people. It was, the delegation of work is a huge part of being a real captain, is knowing exactly what everyone can do, being able to do it if they can't hit it in the right spot, but delegating in a way because you know that there's something else that you need to do. And when they were in the engineering chamber, she got a look with Tilly. She's like, you know what to do. Delay this guy. Delay. There was a moment, boom, right in the eyes. And she's like, yeah, I just got to do this one thing. And it's just literally and she knew because she needed to waste time to make sure the cryostasis chambers came back online. So there was finally that trust with her as a captain that I saw.
All right, Robin, take it away, because we're and then I think we're gonna take once you finish, I think we really need to hit on the Gray and dynamic too, because we
and
Saru
as well.
into the 45 minutes.
Ooh, I love Saru.
So Robin, you get to start that too.
So I love the fact that with Burnham, we're kind of developing this merged captaincy, right? There's a little bit of Sisko in her where the decisions she has to make really have these huge, long-lasting impacts on what's going on because, she's basically rebuilding the Federation, rebuilding Starfleet and having to start that from scratch. And then also a little bit of the diplomacy of Picard, the adventurism of Kirk. So I love that throughout these first, 3 or so episodes, we really see her struggling to find her place in that, kind of pantheon, right? I love when in my particular favorite is the relationship that she's developing with the presidency, right? That's unique to any other Starfleet captain that we've seen up to this point, right? They don't really have that personal relationship, but because of the unique position that she's in having to reform everything and bringing people back together, the balance of power that she has to play with her needs and her idealism as that 24th century very idealized evolved human Vulcan togetherness person to this kind of new age, things have a shade of gray. Like you said, the needs, what does it mean when the needs of the many outweigh the few, right? Or outweigh the wills and morals of the few. So I'm super, super duper excited because I think that's the most interesting development that they could have done with her character for this season, rather than just her being a little bit like Crusher, because that's how I was feeling a little bit of the way her character was going beforehand. But I feel like that level of nuance with her character where she has to balance these power structures and balance this power that she's going through, these power struggles that she's going through. It's going to be really, really key going forward. And I love that about that.
So thank you for that. So one of our final topics for this entire conversation, because there's another storyline in these two separate storylines that we see here, and that's another thing I love about Star Trek. I love how there's like multiple storylines in one show, and then the final episode is like one storyline. But anyway, so we get to see Gray's new body. Now the representation, the metaphors, and all of that, starting with Robin this time, leading into Marie, then Manny. Yeah, I got you. Gotta get you, girl. I gotta get you. Okay.
I like that she's got to get her tea ready. She's like, all right, I have things to say.
Just brief moment, we see that they give a nod to Picard without spoiling season 2.
I think it's a pretty big spoiler.
I mean, they did. Like, there's no way around that. They did. That was like, bing, bing, bing.
I mean,
in case you haven't seen Picard.
Okay, Picard is dust by that century. Okay, we know that. Like,
but yeah, but you know, people are coming off of Picard. I guess they figure that if you're here watching Discovery, that clearly
you watch Picard.
I mean, I did, and we did.
Of course.
Oh my God. Okay, so Doctor makes a reference to it, and we get to see. So pretty much, we have our non-binary character and transgender character openly as main characters on Discovery, and we see the representation of what they were trying to say with this new body. Robin, how did that make you feel? And do you feel that it personally, even though it's in the future and it's a totally different context in terms of an android body, do you feel like that it was spot on in what it was trying to say and how it was said?
Okay, so I kind of feel two ways about this. On one hand, I do think it is that their character is good representation. I think that it's a positive way to look at that story and to look at kind of trans identity, trans transition, particularly when you're non-binary, right? However, I was watching something this morning, and I think I kind of agree with this one a little bit more. Good representation doesn't make it interesting. So while I think it's good representation, I'm glad that this character exists. I'm glad that they're in the series. I'm saying their character because I can't remember their name for the life of me today. I do think that they could have taken the story in a much more interesting way and made it a little bit more, I don't know, real. I think throwing them in an android body is just kind of a cop-out, right? You don't want to get accused for killing off your one non-binary character. You don't want to get accused for taking the representation and going down a bad route. But then again, I was actually kind of enjoying the storyline that they had with the human conjoined trill. Again, for blanking on the names today because I'm terrible with the names of some of these secondary characters in Discovery. But I do think overall it is a positive. I think it's a good thing that we have it. I'm just curious with how they're going to take it and how they'll use that character going forward.
Okay.
So
for namesake,
by the character going forward, do you mean Adira and Gray or both?
Yes. Yes.
And Tall is the symbiote.
So both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff coming out of that duology because Adira has found their spot really. They are now channeling their inner Tilly, and that's what we're getting out of them. But Gray is a bit of a radical, right? Like we don't quite know what he's going to do. He may go off to Trill. Right, because he's always wanted to be a guardian, and now that he's no longer dead, he has the opportunity. And I kind of wonder if we're going to start to see some mild resentment that Adira gets to be Adira Tal, and Gray, who was joined, is no longer joined. Or did they build the capability of joining into the Golem body? I mean, we don't know that. And I think Gray is going to have to wrestle with what am I going to do on this ship? I'm not I mean, because that's kind of, I think, where we get the Quajon from, right? Is because I don't know what Book's doing. Book doesn't know what he's doing, but he knows he's not Starfleet. But he also knows that he's in love with Michael Burnham. So, um, is Gray going to find himself in that position? I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I did like that we get a real nod at Gray's transness. That certainly happened last episode when he talks about removing the mole and how the first time did this, he had bigger fish to fry rather than just the mole. And I think that's really cool, because it's not. What I like about that is that his transness is not the driving force of the story. We're not getting a very special episode of Star Trek Discovery vibe.
Agreed.
Y'all know you remember this. We're all the same age. But we're not getting that vibe. And I think that's really cool, that because they're showing normalization. And what I like about that is, one of the great things about Star Trek is that Star Trek is a vision of the future. And when we look at the future, who gets a seat at the table? Who do we think? Who do we hope gets a seat at the table?
That's a good point.
And I'm not saying that. I'm sorry. No, I was just saying, I wasn't saying that, interesting things won't happen with that character, right? Like, I do think Gray and Adira are going to have some very fascinating storylines. My only thing was, at least with what was presented in episode 3, and again later in episode 4. This is not a spoiler because they're not in that one, but they're not in it. I'm sorry.
I promise. After this, I'm gonna go and get on my computer and I'm gonna catch up.
I'm so sorry. I'm just curious. I can see where they can take it, where it is a very fascinating story that isn't, rooted in their transness, but rooted in kind of a larger finding identity story, which is what I find compelling about those types of stories. But I'm just not. I don't know. I guess I'm just waiting to see what'll happen. I'm very curious.
I think it's fair. Manny, how do you feel about it?
Okay, here's what let
me
break
clip
down
on YouTube that I didn't remember.
Yes. That they said that he might join. Anyway, it's like, what are you going to do? Well, it could be a garden, or I could go off and join, or whatever. So one of the questions there was, are they able to join? Is the top like he obviously doesn't have a symbiont, but maybe the body's capable of having a symbiont. That is an interesting flex. I will go and circle back to what Robin said, because it's still sort of reverberating, is that good representation doesn't always make good. It's not interesting necessarily all the time. And I don't think that the way that I interpret that is that we have such little screen time, because it's such less. We don't have the huge arcs of TNG or TOS or whatever. We have a bunch of episodes. You have these slivers of time. And so we're analyzing them to death. We just have just such little actual screen time, so that you're like, was this a good use of time? Did they really do this or whatever, right? Should we have done it? So there's a lot of, stuff with Gray and Adira, and they're figuring it out. I like the way that they paid homage to the original Trill stuff, where when Jadzia was having her Jantara, she couldn't feel those things inside of her anymore. Mm-hmm. She's like, I feel, but even Jadzia was kind of it was more jarring for her. I didn't feel it was as jarring for Adira at first, but then she became anxious, and they walked her out. I like that they brought Gray into the world, but again, here's my bugaboo. It's a technical flaw, which is that when the Guardian moved in Jadzia's Jantara, when she moved them into the thing passed through him physically into the other person. Okay, and this was a hologram, so I didn't understand how he could sense things. He's like, oh, I don't sense the spirit here.
Magic,
or that it didn't.
Manny. It's magic.
I'm just saying. I don't mean to nitpick. That's what shot out to me. So I want to finish with William's point, which is, what did I think about this type of identity? And I think I've said it before, which is, none of this. I don't think about it that way. I just see a character, and I'm just like, oh, cool, they're there. Once they've written in a character, it's not like in Star Wars where you see Jar Jar Binks, and you're like, that shouldn't be there. I just think of it as the pattern or tapestry of Trek, and I'm like, oh, cool, they're on that ship. That's fine. And if they're exploring their identity, if it takes it to an interesting place, I'm down. But if it's a bunch of screen time to belabor, and I'll use that again the same way, as if we're hammering home that they're close, we know they're close. It's like Stamets and Culber. We know they're close. We've moved on. They're more interesting people. I would rather see Gray do something musical, or I would rather see Adira do something mathematical. I want to see what they can do, not just who they are. Like, I know who they are is important in terms of representation, but I want to add to the plot. I want to move them forward as like characters. So I feel that it's necessary to get into the body, and that's cool. I just thought that maybe you could have a flashback with Adira where they're like, there could have been more in the plot of Adira and Greg.
Thank you. I actually echo almost what everyone is saying. Now, thanks, Jermaine, from a cinematic perspective, not even cinematic, from a script writing perspective, yes, I'm a homosexual man, but I appreciated the representation. I really do. But I appreciate representation where it fits. And I'm hoping for future episodes this will fit. There will be a reason why. I mean, keep in mind, we now have an android by definition on Discovery. At least the body. You have to really think about it. This is no Data. We are 700 years past that. So even more developed than the body Picard now has, since we're in this century. So we gotta take all that into consideration. What plot point will be beneficial for Discovery for Gray's character? Because now, if there's something in there, almost like a Han Solo coming at the last minute, then that would make perfect sense. I'm like, okay, apparently
a
you
lot
have
of
this.
Star Wars this show.
I have been influenced lately. Please do not judge me. But
we're not confused about the franchise we're talking about. We promise.
I know, I got it.
It's not as bad as me and all the Doctor Who yesterday.
I know, right? So, but that all being said, if there's some sort of plot point in the future before the season ends that is crucial, that requires Gray's character, then I'm all for it. Otherwise, I'm thinking it's just there. I don't like, and that's with anything. I don't like anything that's just there. I need there to be a reason. I need there to be a development. Just like, for instance, and I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna close out, in Insurrection, when Jory got his eyes back, that took a lot of development for us to cherish that moment, to really, hey, he can see again. And this time
I don't
he
know
didn't
that I really cherish any moment in Insurrection.
I mean, look, it was his first sunrise. Let him have it, okay?
Woo! Woo!
But guys, thank you
so
so much. This is probably one of the clumsiest episodes I've ever done.
No, it's nice. It's organic.
Thank you. But guys, we have reached our time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Robin, Marie, Manny, thank you so much for your input and your diverse opinions and our very intuitive conversation. I really enjoyed it. Brian, Brandon, Jermaine, thank you for the moderation and in the chat room. Really appreciate it because it keeps us all engaged. I love this. I can honestly say it's awesome. So, guys, yeah, thank you for tuning in to Trekker's Delight. Live long and prosper. And as Jermaine would say in the last episode, peace and long life. Bye.
Take care.